Before starting my talk, I want to thank to my faculty advisor, Dr. Bennett, and Professor Ligui, and my primary INDS advisor, Ms. Sauter, and Mr. McAlpine, and the entire INDS department. I was very fortunate to be part of INDS. Thank you very much. To begin with, the definition of undernourishment is a state lasting for at least 1 year of inability to acquire enough food, defined as a level of food intake insufficient to meet dietary energy requirements. And this is a table showing undernourishment around the world. When media look at this table, they will probably report either world or developing regions, where the number of and prevalence of undernourished people have been decreasing since 1990. But today, I want you to be more aware of developed regions, where the number of and prevalence of undernourishment have been increasing since 2005. You may think this is a small increase, but it means 2.1 million more undernourished people. How about Japan, which is my topic? In 2012, the government classified 31 deaths to be caused by starvation, and I want to share a few stories about this. The superintendent of an apartment building found a dead woman and a boy as he got into the room. Some parts of their bodies were mummified. The police found a note that the woman had apparently written to her son. "I'm sorry, I don't have enough to feed you." Nothing was in the refrigerator. A 54-year-old man was found as dead with a note in his room. "I wanted a rice bowl." The goal of my life is to make a hunger-free world. And to make this happen, I will launch a non-profit organization. And to launch a non-profit organization, I am currently exploring hunger and kodokushi in my Capstone project. Kodokushi describes a situation where one dies alone without being taken care of or accompanied by anyone. These people are often found several days after or even over a month after their death. And the critical reason that I decided to include kodokushi in my study is limited data on the issue of hunger in Japan. I could obtain the information on the number of starvation deaths, gender, and age, but not the geographical distribution of hunger. I don't know where these people starved to death. And one hypothesis could be that those who starved to death may be those who are isolated from the community. Social isolation may be the preceding condition of starvation in the case of Japan. And indeed, the government listed starvation as one of the reasons of kodokushi or lonely death. Also, I found that in both cases, the middle-aged men were the most vulnerable age group, and the Pearson correlation coefficient, R, which measures a strength and direction of association between two variables, indicated a strong relationship between these two issues. To explore these problems, I have chosen 3 disciplines. Human geography can explain how and why people act in a certain way in a place where they live. Aging studies help me to understand psychological, physical, or cultural aspects of human aging. With regard to kodokushi or lonely death, for example, human geography may blame for isolation on weakened family ties or community cohesion, or increasing single households or childless households. Aging studies, on the other hand, may blame for isolation on physical or mental illness of the elderly. And both perspectives are equally important, and I should take both into account. Social entrepreneurship. I don't want to finish by explaining these problems, but want to address these issues with social entrepreneurship. I used these bridging strategies, and I will later explain these with context. I conducted literature reviews and statistical analysis. I selected Tokyo as a case study place, first because of its massive population scale. Japan consists of 47 prefectures, and the highest bar represents Tokyo, whose elderly population was more than that of the fewest 11 prefectures combined. And in 2040, the elderly population of Tokyo will outweigh that of the fewest 14 prefectures combined. In addition to population size, through secondary source analysis, I found that people living in rural areas are more likely to live with their oldest son and his children, which can work as a safeguard to prevent isolation. And this is more on a human geography side. And the researcher Tanaka and Johnson found that the elderly living in urban areas more likely suffered from mental illness, which may more closely relate to isolation or loneliness, which is from aging studies. And with these multiple explanations, I selected Tokyo as a case study place. In Tokyo, males were more prone to kodokushi, and this trend seems to be observed in all the 23 wards. Tokyo has 23 special wards. But look at the upper left, which says Chiyoda. It's an outlier, but probably because of its small scale. And this is a clear advantage of an inclusion of kodokushi in my study, because I could obtain spatial distribution of kodokushi, or only death. It is clear that as people get older, they will encounter the higher chance of kodokushi. But in terms of number, the most vulnerable age group was men in their 60s and women in their 80s. In the case of Japan, eliminating kodokushi would eliminate starvation. And now I want to bridge the explanation-action gap. And the action was initiated with an analogy. In human geography, there is a concept called urban sprawl, which can be defined as a pattern of uncontrolled development of a periphery of a city. And the sprawl can produce a car-dependent culture, which means more use of oil, air and water pollution, and respiratory problems on human beings. Farmlands and natural habitat for wildlife can be destroyed. And the potential solution to urban sprawl is what is called smart growth, which is an urban planning that promotes walkable, compact land areas. So it can prevent urban sprawl from happening. Why don't I apply these elements of smart growth to my organizational plan in social entrepreneurship? Prevent social isolation from happening. I will throw a bunch of different concepts, so prepare for it. The first one is about the sheet, but just the relationship between endosperm and embryo. Endosperm nourishes the embryo, provides nourishment to the growing seedling at germination. Jellyfish chips, jellyfish fertilizer, invented by university professor Tsugio Ezaki. And these chips can retain water, and when they decay, they can provide nutrients for the soil. Making mud balls was one of my favorite activities. Now, what if we make a mud ball with fertile soil and jellyfish chips, and put seeds into that ball? A seed is like the embryo, and a mud ball is like endosperm. A mud ball can nourish the seed. And in business world, the company already sells coated seeds, which provides a boost for the growing seedling in its early stage of life, in its early stage of development. And like animals, seeds may need an extra care when they are babies, and the mud ball can provide that care. Please look at the people over age 50. They like to golf and hike. And maybe we can just throw away mud balls in hiking. Also, we should be checked by ecologists not to harm natural environment. No invasive species. And there is a Spanish company that sells a golf ball that is soluble to water and has fish food in it. Why don't we put a mud ball in it? And ultimately, my goal is to run a non-profit restaurant with a harvest from these activities, which is modeled itself on Ristorante Popular, or People's Restaurant, in in a Brazilian city, Belo Horizonte, which is dubbed a city that ended hunger. I want to provide people with opportunities or places where they can get to know one another. Because in the case of Japan, eliminating isolation, eliminating social isolation would eliminate starvation. Lastly, thank you very much.
Thank you, Yohka. Questions from anybody? There we go. Very interesting statistics you were showing us there. Do you have any comment, qualitative or quantitative, about the role of pride in contributing to starvation and learning death in a developed nation?
Yeah, I read a book called Crazy Like Us, and the book explains how Japanese and people in America, in the US, are different to pride or moral issues. And in Japan, people do not. It doesn't make sense for Japanese people to ask for help to their outsiders or outside their relatives. And I think that the moral is very important cultural aspects of Japan as a kodokushi or starvation.
What a worthy goal and an outstanding presentation. Thank you very much. Have you had an opportunity to look at funding sources for your business or your restaurant?
Not yet, I know.
So did you take any entrepreneurship courses here?
Mm-hmm. But I found there are several non-profit organizations in Japan that provide seedling funding to startups. So I hope if I can get funding from these non-profit organizations.
Following on Professor Freeland's comment, how might you deal with the pride issue? So if you know that pride is potentially a contributing factor to kodokushi, how do you break through that barrier?
I think it is important to prevent isolation from happening. So maybe I can work to more younger people, like people in their 20s or 30s, and if they can get to know each other and they can build relationship in early stage of life, then they will, at least they have friends to whom they can ask help in their 60s or 70s. And so, yeah, I want to spread the net. I want to make the networks more wider. And it's fun.
I have two questions. One was, I wonder if you have any ideas why middle-aged men are particularly vulnerable to kodokushi. And the other, when you're thinking about social change, there's this concept of social capital, what's available within the particular community that you're looking at in terms of networks or attitudes or infrastructure that's already in place that will enable the change to happen that you're seeking. So I'm wondering if you've thought at all about what positive social capital would be available to you, let's say in Tokyo, if you start working there.
The first question, the reason why men in their 50s are the most vulnerable age group is, I think, maybe they don't get married, and if they don't have a job, if they are unemployed, they will more close their mind and they will stay inside the home. I don't know about this, so I have to explore that question. And secondly, Tokyo. I think Tokyo is one of the most advanced city in the world, and there are lots of people. There are lots of people from all over the world, and many people are coming from rural areas to get jobs or to get higher education. So I think that Tokyo has diversity, like diverse, various people who have a various backgrounds. So it may help me to make my solution more innovative or more outstanding. So I hope I answered your question.
Time for a couple more questions or a longer break?
Longer break.
No, I'm going to follow up because that was so interesting.
Good answer.
Last comment I make. Is it possible that middle-aged men suffer the most from the pride that they have the highest expectation of earning, being in a job? Would it be socially unacceptable for a 50-year-old man to ask for help? That's asking for speculation, which is leading, but I know it's speculation.
I think they are already mature adults, and if people are in their 20s or 30s, they are still, when they can help, they can. Maybe men in their 50s, their parents may die, and so they cannot ask help to their family. But if they are in 20s or 30s, they have a family and so parents, and they can help.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we get a pause now. Thank you very much, Yohka. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yohka's graduating with departmental honors, which means that you take particular courses for honors credit as well as the Capstone project. The Capstone project would then be a 4-credit project versus 3 credits. So we have a cord here that you will be wearing then at the commencement ceremony. We thought it appropriate that we both award you. Congratulations.